I told my wife I didn't want children, so she had a secret abortion. How do we go from here? I've been happily married to my wife, Clara, for around 3 years now. I love this woman to pieces. I don't want to get sentimental, but she truly is my other half, and I cannot see myself with another woman, even now. Before we got married, I made my stance on children clear. I didn't want any. She agreed in the moment, and I thought that was that. About a year and a half into our marriage, she brought up the question of children again. She asked me if I wanted kids. I said no. She hummed, and we went back to what we were doing before. It wasn't so much a conversation as an odd question this time around, but I didn't think anything of it. We had a very robust sex life, but always took necessary precautions. She has the implant, and I use a condom around 90% of the time, so I wasn't worried. Recently, her bookshelf broke, so I ordered a new one. I wanted to build it as a surprise and put her books on it for when she came home. While going through them, I noticed an old journal of hers. I immediately smiled and flipped through it. In college, she carried it around, a future planning notebook of sorts. If she wanted something in life, she'd draw it out, add clippings, the whole 9 yards, manifestation, if you will. She showed it to me in college after declaring she wanted to pursue her doctorate, and I remember being stunned by her attention to detail. We were only sophomores, and she already knew exactly what she wanted to do, study, and where she would take herself. It made me feel out of depth. I liked it. As I flipped through the journal, reminiscing about the past, I hadn't expected to find any new entries, especially not anything recent that I hadn't experienced with her. But as I opened it up, I saw something I never thought I'd see. A section dedicated to pregnancy and baby preparation. She had researched prenatal vitamins, OBGYNs in our area, and had images of cradles, etc. It was only 2 pages, but I remember feeling sick. In my head, there was only one reason she put that in a journal like this. She wanted kids. Naturally, I was torn up. I kept telling myself I had been upfront about what I wanted, and if she hadn't, that was her fault. But the thought that she'd secretly been suffering because of me, that she was holding herself back from the life she wanted to please me, I couldn't stand it. I confronted her about it as soon as we came home, and I found out the situation was a lot worse than I thought. Clara did indeed want kids, but claimed she wanted our relationship more and was okay with compromise. I asked her a million times if she was sure. I really wanted her to be honest and not feel like she had to hold anything back. She insisted that not having children wasn't a deal breaker for her, but I kept pushing. I couldn't understand why she put something that wasn't that important to her in that journal. In the midst of our conversation, she dropped the bomb. She told me she had an abortion a year and a half ago. She offered up the information as if I should have been relieved, as if it was the proof. She needed to convince me that she meant what she had said about children not being a deal breaker. I can't describe what I felt in that moment, what I'm still feeling. What I can say is that I have never blown up at my wife the way I did that night. I didn't put my hands on her. I would never put my hands on her, but it was not a pretty exchange. I just remember feeling hurt that she hadn't consulted me on such an important decision, that she went and had such a life-altering procedure without discussing it with me, that I didn't even notice that it happened. I mean, those things have side effects, right? She would have been bedridden for days afterward, in physical and emotional pain. How could I not have seen the signs? I'm still beating myself up about it. I remember her asking me if I wanted kids, but I noticed nothing about her emotional state for the rest of that week when she would have had the procedure done. How much can I really claim to care about her? I don't want children. I still don't. But I'd rather chew my left arm off than make her have an abortion, even more so now after she's told me she isn't really against having kids the way I am. I'd happily raise a kid if it meant she didn't need to go through something so drastic. I've been staying with my sister for the last week and a half. I needed space to think, so I left. I want to see her, to ask if she's okay, but I don't know what to do or say. I'm still unbelievably angry at her and at myself. I don't want to yell at her again. I think the first time around scared her pretty badly, and I don't want to repeat that. How do I talk to her? Should I talk to her? Where do I go from here? I don't want to leave her, nor do I think she wants to leave me, but I'm so torn up about this entire thing that I don't know what to do. Update 1, one day after first post. I woke up to a flood of comments and outright hate, so I want to clarify a few things. Many of you were concerned about me snooping in Clara's journal. Clara and I have known each other since childhood, and she has routinely allowed me to read her journal entries since college. While we used to discuss it more often back then, we've grown older, and her use of this specific journal has diminished. I felt no hesitation picking it up that day, as I've always had permission. It was meant to be a quick trip down memory lane. I had no idea she had added new entries, especially about pregnancy planning. The journal was among her other old books and sketchbooks in the same area. Regarding the suggestion for a vasectomy, I did thoroughly discuss my reasons for not wanting children with Clara before marriage. Our initial reasons aligned closely, but evidently, hers changed over time. At 27, I'm uncertain about my future desires regarding children. Despite its reversibility, a vasectomy is marketed as a permanent procedure, not covered by my insurance for reversal. Given our contraceptive methods and discussions, we decided against it. Birth control was solely Clara's decision long before we started having sex, and she's satisfied with it. The implant combined with condoms provides very low pregnancy odds. Some comments accused me of verbal abuse. Clara and I both grew up in confrontational homes, so we agreed early on to avoid yelling in our relationship. Before this argument, I had never raised my voice at her. It was the worst disagreement in our nearly decade-long relationship and heated on both sides. My comment about physical violence was to emphasize that I would never resort to that, though clearly it was misunderstood. Regarding my absence for a week and a half, it was a mutual decision. I needed space to think after a heated argument, and Clara agreed I should leave temporarily. We maintained contact through text, though our conversations were limited to basic updates due to the tension. There were misconceptions about the physical and emotional impacts of abortion. I incorrectly assumed Clara would show more signs of discomfort afterward based on my experience with other women in my life. Emotionally, I still struggle to understand her decision without consulting me, especially after her more recent stance on children. Despite our disagreements, Clara and I have both been in individual therapy for years. While I'm uncertain about couples counseling on top of that, I'm open to considering it. Lastly, I'm on my way home now and will update if there are any changes. Though the comments have been challenging, I appreciate those who have shared different perspectives. Update 2, 3 days after last update. I came home the morning following my initial post and Clara and I had a very long conversation. We both apologized for letting the previous conversation get out of hand and acting out of character. I also explained why I left in the first place and apologized for raising my voice. She's especially sensitive to that kind of thing, so I addressed it first. She forgave me and said as long as we could keep things calm this time around, it would be okay. She was more interested in finding out what I was so deep in thought about that I was gone for so long. Again, we do take breaks from conflicts from time to time and revisit them when we're calmer, though this was the first one where I physically removed myself from her proximity. I told her how I initially felt after reading her journal entry. I hadn't been mad then. Part of me was confused. We had agreed on no kids before getting married after all. The other half was riddled with anxiety. Contrary to what you may all think, I adore Clara. She is quite honestly one of only good things this life has given me. I didn't want to lose her, but if she wanted kids badly enough to put them in her journal, I wasn't sure what that would mean for us. She downplayed the importance of the entry. In her view, not everything she puts into the journal is something she's genuinely hoping for. Some things are just nice to fantasize about, and not every fantasy is meant to be reality. I was honest. I told her that her words were hard to believe given how meticulously she had written everything down and planned it out. The last thing I wanted was for her to harbor resentment over what her life could have been. She assured me that wasn't the case, but I'm still unsure. Talking about the abortion itself was hard on both of us. I wanted to know if she was in pain, what signs I had missed. I didn't really press for details on the procedure, but we talked a lot about how she felt afterwards, why she hid it, and how she came to her decision. I just held her in my arms and listened for the most part. It was gut-wrenching to say the least. It turns out that the second time she had asked if I wanted kids occurred a month or two after she had already had the procedure done. She had asked because she was contemplating whether or not to tell me about it. I guess she had ultimately decided not to. She told me I was actually with her the day she took the pills. I remembered the day because she had been crying and I wasn't sure why. When I asked, she cited cramps, so I got her a heating pad and laid down with her. Her periods have always been pretty hard on her, so I guess I didn't think much of it. In hindsight, I should have realized something was up because she hasn't had bad cramps in years. Still, I'm glad she didn't go through it completely alone. Much later that day, I asked her why she didn't come to me when she realized she was pregnant. In her eyes, she was protecting our relationship. She knows our circumstances, my reasons for not wanting kids, my stance on abortion. She didn't want to burden me with having to choose between the two, and so she made the choice herself. As hard as I try, I can't understand or accept her reasoning. Her decision to go through this alone, while meant to shield me, inadvertently communicated that she doesn't trust me to support her or handle the truth. All I understood is that she feels like she can't lean on me when she's in trouble. And if that's the case, I'm not sure why we're married. She's always been independent, but this is the first time I felt completely blindsided by not being included. I asked up and down if I had given her a reason to doubt me, to doubt my commitment to her, if she felt I wasn't a reliable partner, etc. She said no, but that just makes all this harder to grasp. She said she was afraid saying anything would change how I viewed her, our relationship, but I'm having a hard time distinguishing insecurity, anxiety from reasonable doubt. I asked her if she knew I loved her, how much I care for her, the lengths I would go to make her happy, etc. She laughed a little and reminded me of a line from my wedding vows. We shared private vows before our ceremony and I had said quite a bit. I was a little shocked that she remembered that portion at all, let alone word for word. We transitioned to talking about the promises we made one another, and just times in our relationship where we had complete trust, faith in one another. It helped put us both in better moods and ended the night on a lighter note for both of us. We're doing okay at the moment. Not quite where we were before, but getting there. Everything's still incredibly raw, including our eyes. We both broke down 5 minutes into the conversation. Clara is against couples counseling right now. I'm ambivalent, as we're still working a couple of things out on our own. I'm not sure how helpful a third party asking what steps we're willing to take to improve trust and transparency will really be, but I'm open to anything at this point. We're not leaving one another. Issues or not, we both think it's clear that there's still an abundance of love between us, and we don't want to throw that away. Some of you will be happy to know that Clara and I decided on a new rule for ourselves. Clara was a lot more upset about my leaving than she initially let on. From now on, the distance between the top and bottom floors of our home is all the space either of us are allowed to take it we need to cool our heads. If proximity really does become an issue, the max either of us are allowed to stay outside the house is 48 hours. So, no more week-long stays at my sister's. And that's it.